Time to let go. If only it was that easy. My whole life, I've felt out of control. My whole life, up until now, has felt like a mess. To some degree, I believe that that is what my life would always be, while desperately hoping for the opposite. But I'm here now, and all I can do is try my best to change the narrative going forward. It is not going to be easy to change 3 decades of living in the same pattern, but I've taken the initiative to do my best to change that. I always tell myself that I'm never doing enough, but the fact is, I am. I've always given everything that I do 100% of my energy, often to the point of burnout, which often becomes the point where I've always started to fall back into my more familiar and more comfortable way of life that, although miserable, was the only way I'd ever known. For far too long, I'd been addicted to my own misery, while not being able to see that this addiction was just as harmful as every other addiction I've had. I get so impatient when it comes to change. I want change now. I want to stop being so miserable and lonely now, but it is a process and I need to learn to let life unfold at its own pace rather than trying to control something that can never truly be controlled. Why would I be an exception to that universal rule? It will come as soon as I start to learn more about myself and that I'm doing with each new day that I sit here. I'm putting in the work, and now it is time to let life unfold and have faith in myself, in the universe, that the life I deserve will come once I learn to relinquish control. Have faith, Dylan. Everything will happen exactly as it should. And that's one of the big themes that I've noticed when looking back at my life is in the moment, it feels like everything's going wrong, everything's falling apart. Only whenever I look back and really analyze each event that happened in my life, it happened in the perfect sequence to make me the person that I am today. Before, I was not quite happy with the person that I am. But that was also one of the biggest things stopping me from being able to make the changes that I knew that I would need to make in my life to actually become that person that I've always believed I was truly meant to become. But I've always been my own worst enemy. I've always figured out a way to trip myself up, to tell myself that I don't deserve something, and just be stuck in those negative thought loops for so many decades. It was always a common theme in my life of when something went wrong, or even when things went right, I'd tell myself that I didn't deserve any of it. I'd always be so harsh in my own internal dialogue, telling myself that, again, I don't deserve anything, telling myself that I'm a piece of shit, telling myself that I have so many problems that I will never be able to find love, only for those ways of thinking to be the exact reason why all of those things were going wrong. I've always up until now, been not resistant, but just like, oh yeah, manifestation doesn't really work. Because I'd always thought about manifesting in terms of manifesting positive things coming into your life, as opposed to now being able to realize that as much as we can manifest a positive, we can also just as easily manifest a negative. And that's what I'd been doing for pretty much my whole life up until this point. Whenever I'd tell myself something was going to go wrong, it went wrong. And then I'd beat myself up on that. And then that negative loop would just keep continuing. And now that I've done so much in my life to change absolutely everything that I was used to, stopping drinking was the biggest thing, because I was getting to that point where there would have been a couple more really drunk blackout nights, which would have actually most likely led me to completely throwing my reputation away. And I did in certain aspects, and there's definitely people that I've harmed along the way, which I'm deeply regretful about. But I knew that being regretful of those things that are done would only lead me to stay in that state where I would do even more things that would make me even more regretful. And I rather chose to take responsibility and accountability for changing that going forward. And the first big step was stopping drinking. Throughout all of the ups and downs I've had over the past year, and there's been some of the hardest things I've had to deal with in my life, especially over the past few months, I did not fall back into my old drink addiction. And over this past weekend, I was probably the closest that I've been to having a drink again. And I managed to resist it. And I should be proud of myself for that. Because that is one of the things that I've realized is I'd never been able to be proud of myself for any external accomplishments. I have been proud of myself for especially a lot of the internal work and the internal accomplishments that I've managed to um, managed to accomplish. I didn't want to use that word again. Managed to accomplish over the past few months. But then there are also times that slip through, like me not drinking again this weekend. It was really fucking hard, and I'm still feeling shit, but I should feel really proud of myself for not falling back into those old familiar patterns that had I've had for at least a decade. Obviously, when I first started drinking, um, when I was like 18, 19, it was not an addiction. It was just a lot of fun, but it was already then a coping mechanism. At the end of most stressful days, I'd go have a drink by myself. And that was one of the big themes is, yes, it's okay and very acceptable to drink around with friends, but when you're drinking by yourself all the time, that was most likely the start of my addiction, which for many years it wasn't affecting my life. And even when I did start partying and drinking a lot more heavily, at first it was just harmless fun. But then when I would especially become incredibly depressed, then towards the end of it, it just became such a big coping mechanism. Like I'd wake up at 10 and have my first drink by 12 and do that every day for almost a year. And the fact that I've able to break that, I should be really fucking proud of myself. And there are times when I say that I'm proud of myself, but I don't really get that feeling for more than a brief few moments before I'm worried about the next thing. And even just what I'm doing in my everyday life, sitting here every day, I should be proud of that. There are so many things I should be proud of myself for. And I hope that I will be able to break those old thought patterns as I continue to do more work on myself, which should make me even more proud of myself. And I know that I will be able to get there in time, because as much as, again, I haven't quite been as proud of myself as I should yet, I've not allowed myself to slip back into those patterns. And even while going through, particularly the breakup was a while ago, but for me, I feel everything so deeply. So it's still been an ongoing thing for me to process. And even in that time, I've managed to stop smoking cannabis. I am still taking one or two pulls on a THC vape before I go to bed, but going from smoking multiple grams every single day of my life for about 10 years to being where I am now, that is incredible growth. And with each few months that I feel better about myself, then I'm even more likely now. The last thing I have on my list is nicotine. And one of the things I have also come to realize is with ADHD and just having a lower baseline dopamine or dopamine deficit, I haven't quite figured out or learned about all the mechanisms yet. It is super hard just to eliminate all these sources of dopamine from my life. And hopefully I'll find healthier ways, such as sports, exercise, which I've already been doing a ton of for my whole life, but maybe as well now I want to get myself my first puppy. And I think that and having some sort of connection to something that I can see every day and spend time with every day and use as a therapy animal, which I believe that I do need. That's the one thing, is the alcohol and all these substances was the one of the best ways to help me mask my ADHD and potential bit of autism. And yeah, I'm not able to hide from anything anymore. So it's become more apparent in my life. And it's made me, for a few months, feel really down on myself, that there are maybe aspects of myself that I can't change. But it's also given me a sense of relief, because there were all these things where I was like, how could I do that? How could I, um, yeah, just act this way? How can I be so socially awkward and not be able to pick up on social cues, and trying to learn that better? But if there's something that is fundamentally not quite connected right to my brain, it also takes some of that pressure off of, now I can rather tell people how I am. And yes, I might not pick up on social cues, but if I tell you about that, you can try and make those cues a little bit more obvious, as opposed to me having to figure it out strictly from body language. But I'm starting to feel better today compared to what I have been over the past few days. And I know it will still come in waves, as anything. But the best thing I can do is realize that I am not those waves. Those waves are something coming through my life, but they are not me. And I can't avoid them, but I can do my best to roll with them. So thanks for watching today, and see you again tomorrow.